Greetings, fellow thinkers and drinkers, on a rather sad and somber occasion. This is hardly breaking news now, but yesterday, as I was having a drink with a few friends, the news broke that Ozzy Osbourne had died, age 76. It did rather put a bit of a damper on the evening, and it did encourage us to have a few more than perhaps we intended to. Having a toast or two to another fallen hero. As a huge fan of Black Sabbath, I just thought I would express my thoughts briefly on this, as I have said, rather sad occasion. His sudden, one has to say, passing does add considerable poignancy, I think, to the events of the 5th of July, less than 3 weeks ago, as I record this, where, despite much initial skepticism, mine included, he did actually perform. And to be honest, given the circumstances, he looked and performed, I thought, rather well. I remember I saw Lemmy live, Motorhead live, some 13 months prior to Lemmy's death. And on that evening, I would not have put money on him surviving the next 13 months. In comparison, from what one saw on the screen, Ozzy appeared relatively spry and sprightly, despite his being confined to his throne. As I said, under the circumstances, his death then did come as something of a shock, and it will doubtless unleash a flood of speculation. How much did he know? Did he know his days were numbered, etc., etc., etc.? Does it really matter? It's a private matter for him and those close to him. What ultimately transpired is simply this. He got to say his goodbye. He had his farewell, and it was obviously very important to him. And he got to do it, and we got to witness it. And that's that. And while I know, in today's modern, at least Western world, 76 is not a great age. But one has to remember, he has been suffering with Parkinson's disease, which is fatal, ultimately. For over 20 years now, so it seems like that. And, surviving 20 years with Parkinson's disease is no mean feat in and of itself. And when one adds to that, and takes into consideration the life he led, and there is certainly, I think, an argument to be made that 76 represents a pretty good return on investment. Somebody once said that it's not the length of life, but it is the breadth of life. And if there's any truth to that whatsoever, then I'm afraid Ozzy has absolutely no grounds for complaint whatsoever. His story, his life story, were it provided as the plot for some work of fiction, would be immediately rejected and discarded due to its utter implausibility. He lived, to put it very mildly, an extremely full, interesting, and one has to say productive life. All of us, when we're born, are handed a one-way ticket. Not many of us will enjoy the ride he went on. He was obviously a founding member of Black Sabbath, which alone guarantees his immortality. And while, if I'm being honest, his solo career never particularly engaged me beyond Bark at the Moon, well, that's my issue. And I may well be in the minority there, because he was obviously very much loved, very beloved by the public, and this exceeded outside the normal realms of hard rock and heavy metal. He's always been seemingly impervious to fashion in the dark days of the 90s, like many other huge names. He was never reduced to playing clubs. He was always selling out arenas around the world, wherever he went. And later on, he became as much a cultural phenomenon as he did singer, rock star. One may, be slightly skeptical perhaps about stuff like the Osbournes and that, but, well, he did it. And it brought him, to a much wider audience, whether anybody who watched that ever actually went out and bought one of his records, let alone a Black Sabbath record, is perhaps a moot point, but it certainly didn't hurt him. Well, it didn't hurt him financially. But ultimately for me, it's just those first 10 years, all those tours, and those 8 albums with Black Sabbath, which reflect his greatest contribution to the world of music and culture, if we're going to be a little bit flowery about it, about our use of language. It is no doubt a sad day, and with his passing, a chapter very much closes. However, his music and his legacy remain. He's gone, but he will not be forgotten. All the best, Ozzy. Rest in peace. Maçhonquèrre.